He humiliated me before his friends and mistress, but my revenge shocked everyone. Here is my revenge stories. I'm standing in the doorway of what used to be our living room, watching my husband kiss another woman. Not a quick kiss. Not an accidental brush of lips. A deep, passionate, possessive kiss that makes my stomach turn and my hands shake. His friends are scattered around the room like they own the place, drinking expensive whiskey from crystal glasses I picked out for our 3rd anniversary, lounging on furniture I chose, laughing at jokes I can't hear over the blood rushing in my ears. And nobody, not a single person in this room filled with people I've cooked for, cleaned for, welcomed into my home, seems to remember that I exist. That I'm standing right here, 10 feet away, watching my entire world crumble in real time. The woman he's kissing, her name is Vanessa, though I'm not supposed to know that, has her hand on his chest, right where his heart should be. She's wearing a dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Her hair is perfect, her makeup is flawless, and she's everything I'm not. Confident, successful. The kind of woman who belongs in rooms like this with men, like my husband has become. She pulls back from the kiss, laughing at something he whispered, and her eyes sweep the room. They land on me for a fraction of a second.
She sees me. I know she sees me.
But she doesn't stop touching him, doesn't step away, doesn't even look embarrassed. Instead, she leans closer to him, her message crystal clear. He's mine now. You're irrelevant. I want to scream.
Want to throw something.
Want to run across this room and tear them apart with my bare hands. But I can't move. I'm frozen. My feet rooted to the hardwood floor I scrubbed on my hands and knees just yesterday, preparing for this gathering. This party. This celebration of my husband's success that I'm not really part of, but am expected to facilitate. My throat is tight. My chest hurts. And I can feel tears starting to burn behind my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. Not yet. Not here. Not where they can see me break. Damien, I finally managed to say, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. Quieter than the music playing in the background. Quieter than the laughter. Quieter than the sound of my heart shattering. Can I talk to you for a moment? He turns.
Slowly.
Like he's annoyed at the interruption. Like I'm a servant who's forgotten her place and needs to be reminded of it. His hand is still on Vanessa's waist. He doesn't let go. Doesn't even loosen his grip. He just looks at me with an expression I've seen more and more often over the past year. A mixture of irritation and contempt that makes me feel about 2 inches tall. What is it, Elena? Each word is clipped.
Sharp.
He says my name like it leaves a bad taste in his mouth. Around us, conversations are starting to die down. People are noticing, turning to watch. I can feel their eyes on me, and the weight of their attention makes my skin crawl. I don't want to do this in front of an audience. Don't want to have this conversation with witnesses. But I also can't pretend anymore. Can't spend another minute acting like everything is fine when it's so clearly not. Can we talk? I ask again, trying to keep my voice steady. In private. His jaw tightens. We have guests, Elena. He says it slowly, enunciating each word like I'm a child who can't understand basic concepts. Whatever it is can wait. I just wanted to. I start, but he cuts me off.
Jesus Christ, Elena.
He releases Vanessa and turns to face me fully, and the look in his eyes makes me take an involuntary step backward. I've seen him angry before. Frustrated. Annoyed. But this is different. This is pure disdain. What is so goddamn important that you have to interrupt us right now? Can't you see we're in the middle of something? The room has gone completely silent now. Every single person is watching. Waiting. I can feel judgment radiating from them like heat. They think I'm being difficult, demanding, ruining the party with my needy wife behavior. I can see it in their faces. I made dinner, I say, and my voice cracks on the last word. I hate how pathetic I sound. How desperate. I thought maybe we could all sit down and... The laughter starts before I can finish the sentence. It begins with Blake, one of Damien's business partners, a man with a receding hairline and an investment portfolio he never stops talking about. He slaps his knee like I've just told the funniest joke he's ever heard. Then Carter joins in, and another man whose name I can't remember, and suddenly the entire room is laughing. At me. They're laughing at me. She made dinner, Blake repeats, wiping tears from his eyes. Oh God, that's rich. That's really rich. Vanessa is smiling now too. Not laughing outright like the men, but there's amusement dancing in her eyes. Cruel amusement that tells me she's enjoying this. Enjoying watching me be humiliated. Enjoying her victory. Damien turns back to his friends, and he's smiling too. That smile, I used to love that smile. Used to think it was charming and warm, and one of the things I loved most about him. Now it looks like a weapon. Sharp and cold, and designed to cut. This is what I deal with, he says, loud enough for everyone to hear. Making sure everyone is paying attention. Making sure they all understand that this moment is important. That what he's about to say is something they need to witness. My wife, ladies and gentlemen, still living in 1950. Still thinking that cooking dinner makes her relevant. More laughter.
Harder this time.
Meaner. I feel like I'm going to be sick. Damien, please. I try one more time, but he's not done. He's on a roll now, feeding off the energy of his audience, and he's going to make sure this moment destroys me completely. Let me make something clear to everyone in this room, he says, raising his voice to ensure every person can hear him. Every single witness to my humiliation. My wife, Elena, is what we call a dependent. She doesn't work. She doesn't contribute anything meaningful to our household beyond basic domestic tasks that, frankly, I could hire someone to do for half the cost. She cooks and cleans and acts like those things make her valuable. Like they make her equal to people like us. He gestures to his friends, to Vanessa, to everyone in the room who has a career and ambition and actual worth. But here's the truth. He pauses. For effect. Making sure everyone is hanging on his next words. The only reason she's still here is because I'm too busy to deal with divorce paperwork. That's it. That's the only reason. Not love. Not loyalty. Not any of the sentimental bullshit people pretend marriage is about. Just inertia. And honestly, at this point, she's more trouble than she's worth. The words land like physical blows. Each one hitting me square in the chest, knocking the air from my lungs. The room has gone quiet again, but this time the silence feels different. Heavier. Some people look uncomfortable now. A few women are exchanging glances that might be sympathetic, though nobody says anything. Nobody defends me. Nobody tells him to stop. Vanessa steps closer to Damien, sliding her arm around his waist in a gesture of possession and solidarity. Well, I work, she says, looking directly at me, making sure I understand that she's everything I'm not, everything I failed to be. I'm a lawyer. Corporate litigation. I make my own money. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I take care of myself. Exactly, Damien says, kissing her forehead. That's what I'm talking about. A woman with ambition.
With drive.
With actual value beyond being able to operate a vacuum cleaner. Not someone who's content to be a housewife in the 21st century, like it's some kind of accomplishment. I want to tell them that I gave up my career for him. Want to scream that I was 2 semesters away from finishing my MBA at Columbia when we got married. That he asked me, no, begged me, to put my education on hold because he was starting his business and needed me to hold down the fort at home. That I believed him when he said it was temporary. That I trusted him when he said we were building our future together. That every sacrifice I made was because I thought we were partners. That I thought my contribution mattered even if it wasn't bringing in a paycheck. But I can't say any of that. Because my voice is gone. Because tears are streaming down my face now, and I can't stop them. Because I'm standing in my own home, surrounded by people who should be my friends, my community, my support system, and I've never felt more alone in my entire life. I turn, walk away, stumble through the doorway and down the hall, my vision blurred by tears, my chest so tight I can barely breathe. Behind me, I can hear them laughing again.
Talking.
Moving on, like what just happened was nothing. Like they didn't just witness my complete and total destruction. I make it to the guest bedroom. I've been sleeping here for the past month because Damien claims I snore, though I know that's just an excuse, and I lock the door behind me, slide down with my back against it until I'm sitting on the floor. And then I cry. I cry so hard that my whole body shakes. Cry until my throat is raw and my eyes are swollen and I have nothing left inside me but emptiness. But somewhere in that emptiness, something else begins to form. Something cold and hard and sharp. Something that feels almost like clarity, like purpose.
If he wants to humiliate me, fine.
If he wants to treat me like I'm worthless, okay. If he wants to parade his mistress in our home and tell his friends I'm nothing more than hired help who's overstayed her welcome, so be it. But he's going to regret it. He's going to regret every word, every laugh, every moment of cruelty. He's going to regret underestimating me so completely. Because I may not work. I may not have a fancy title or a big salary or a prestigious career. But I'm not stupid. I'm not helpless. And I'm definitely not going to let him destroy me without consequences. I sit there on that floor, listening to the party continue in the other room, listening to him celebrate with his friends and his mistress while I fall apart alone, and I make a promise to myself.
A vow.
Damien is going to pay for this.
I don't know how yet.
Don't know the details or the timeline or the specifics. But I know this with absolute certainty. He will pay. And when I'm done with him, he'll wish he'd never met me. Before we go any further into the story, I need to stop and talk to you directly. Not as a narrator. Not as someone telling Elena's story. But as someone who needs you to understand how important this moment is. If you're watching this video right now and you haven't subscribed to this channel, I am personally asking you, begging you, to hit that subscribe button. Not just because it helps the channel grow, though it does. Not just because it supports the work of bringing these stories to you, though that matters too. But because this story is about to take you on a journey unlike anything you've experienced before. What you just witnessed, that humiliation, that cruelty, that complete destruction of a human being's dignity, that's just the beginning. The opening act. The moment that sets everything else in motion. And what comes next is going to shock you. It's going to make you question your own ideas about justice and revenge, and how far someone should go when they've been hurt. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you think. And it's going to make you understand why some people snap. But I need you here for all of it. I need you subscribed so you don't miss a single moment of how Elena transforms from victim to victor. How she goes from broken wife crying on a bathroom floor to strategic mastermind orchestrating the complete destruction of everything her husband holds dear. This isn't a simple revenge story. This isn't she keyed his car and felt better. This is calculated, methodical, devastating, and absolutely riveting. So please, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Hit the like button to tell the algorithm that this story matters. That these experiences matter. That women like Elena deserve to have their stories told. And turn on notifications because when part 2 of this story drops, you're going to want to be there immediately. You're going to want to see how this ends. Or rather, how it begins, because Elena's revenge is really the beginning of her new life. And while you're at it, leave a comment.
Tell me what you're thinking right now.
Tell me if you think Elena is justified in what she's about to do. Tell me about your own experiences with betrayal or humiliation. Build this community with me. Because that's what we're doing here, building a space where these stories can be told and heard and validated. Now, let me say a prayer for everyone watching. Because if you're here, if this story resonates with you, chances are you've experienced something similar. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar enough that Elena's pain feels familiar. Heavenly Father, we come before you with heavy hearts. We lift up everyone watching who's ever been humiliated, who's ever been told they're worthless, who's ever been betrayed by someone they loved and trusted. Give them strength, Lord. Give them wisdom. Help them see that their value doesn't come from other people's opinions, that they are precious in your eyes even when they feel invisible to everyone else. And guide them toward justice, not vengeance born of hatred, but justice born of righteousness. Protect their hearts as they heal. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right.
Are you subscribed?
Good.
Then let's continue. Let's watch as Elena stops being the victim and becomes something far more dangerous. Let's watch as Damian Brooks learns that the woman he threw away is about to become his worst nightmare. That night, long after the party finally ended and Damian stumbled to bed drunk and satisfied with himself, I stayed in the guest bedroom. I didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. My mind was too active, processing too much, seeing connections I'd been blind to for months. Maybe years. I lay in that bed staring at the ceiling, and memories started flooding back. Memories I'd explained away.
Memorias de racionaliza.
Memories I'd willfully ignored because facing them would mean admitting my marriage was a lie. The late nights at the office that became more frequent over the past year. The business trips that multiplied until he was gone more often than he was home. The way he stopped touching me, not gradually but suddenly, like someone had flipped a switch, and I'd gone from desirable to repulsive overnight. The way he stopped talking to me about his day, his dreams, his thoughts.
Stopped asking about mine.
Stopped seeing me as a person at all. I'd noticed all of it. Of course I had. You don't live with someone for 8 years and not notice when they fundamentally change. But I told myself stories to make it bearable. He's under stress because the business is growing. He's tired from working so hard. He's focused on providing for our future. Once things settle down, we'll reconnect. We'll get back to who we were. We'll remember why we fell in love. But we weren't going to reconnect.
He didn't want to reconnect.
Because somewhere along the line, Damian had stopped loving me. Maybe he never really loved me at all. Maybe I was just convenient, useful, a placeholder until something better came along. And now something better had come along. Vanessa. Beautiful, successful, ambitious Vanessa who worked and earned her own money and didn't need anyone to take care of her. Everything I wasn't. Everything I'd failed to become because I'd believed in a partnership that only I was honoring. The anger that had been building since the party was starting to crystallize into something sharper. Something more focused. I'd been betrayed, yes. Humiliated, definitely. But more than that, I'd been used. Damian had convinced me to give up my education, my career prospects, my earning potential, and then he turned around and used that sacrifice as evidence of my worthlessness. He'd taken my love and twisted it into ammunition to use against me. That wasn't just betrayal. That was psychological warfare. And I was done being a casualty. By the time the sun started rising, painting weak light across the ceiling, I had the beginnings of a plan. Nothing concrete yet. Nothing detailed. But a framework. A direction. A sense of what needed to happen next. I needed information. I needed leverage. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before I could figure out how to dismantle it. The next morning, I got up and made breakfast like I always did. Set the table like I always did. Made coffee the way Damian liked it. Too much cream, 2 sugars like I always did. But everything was different now. I was different. I moved through the kitchen like an actress playing a role. The dutiful wife. The domestic goddess. The woman who didn't matter. I played the part perfectly while my mind was somewhere else entirely, calculating and planning and preparing. Damian appeared around 9, looking rough from the alcohol. His hair was messy. His eyes were bloodshot. He was wearing the same clothes from last night, which meant he'd passed out without bothering to change. He avoided eye contact as he stumbled toward the coffee pot like a man approaching salvation. "Morning," he muttered, his voice hoarse. He grabbed the mug I'd set out for him and drank deeply, his back to me. Coward. He couldn't even look at me. I didn't respond immediately. Just watched him, studied him, looked at him like I was seeing him for the first time. Or maybe seeing him clearly for the first time in years. This man had once been my everything. My husband. My partner. The person I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Now he was a stranger. Worse than a stranger. An enemy who'd been living in my house, eating my food, sleeping under my roof, while systematically destroying me. About last night, he finally said, still not turning around. Still not having the courage to face me. I was drunk. I didn't mean. It's fine, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. Unnaturally calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. He turned then, surprise flickering across his face. Really? Because I know I was harsh and I said some things that were. I said it's fine, Damien. I forced myself to smile. It felt wrong on my face. Plastic and fake and nothing like a real smile. But I made it work. Made it convincing. You were just being honest. I appreciate honesty. He stared at me for a long moment, suspicion clouding his hungover features. He wasn't stupid. He knew something was off. Knew this wasn't the reaction he'd expected. He'd probably anticipated tears. Accusations. A dramatic confrontation. Instead, I was giving him calm acceptance, and it was throwing him off balance. Good. Let him be off balance. Let him be confused. Let him underestimate me just a little bit more. His phone buzzed on the counter. Probably Vanessa, probably already texting him good morning and wondering when she could see him again, and just like that, he forgot about me entirely. His attention shifted to the screen, and I watched his expression change.
Soften.
The way he used to look at me in the early days of our relationship. I have to go to the office, he said, grabbing his keys without finishing the coffee I'd made. Without eating the breakfast I'd prepared. Without even acknowledging that I existed beyond being a minor inconvenience he had to navigate around. Don't wait up tonight. I have a big meeting that might run late. A meeting.
Right.
More like a date with Vanessa in some hotel room. Probably paid for with our joint credit card. The credit card I wasn't technically supposed to know the password to, but had figured out months ago when I started getting suspicious about mysterious charges. Of course, I said sweetly. Playing my role. Have a good day, honey. He actually flinched at the endearment. Like I'd slapped him instead of called him the name I'd been using for 8 years. Then he was gone, practically running out the door, and I was alone in the house that suddenly felt more like a tomb than a home. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. The first call I made was to my old college roommate, Jennifer Martinez. We'd been close once, best friends who'd shared everything from clothes to secrets to dreams about our futures. But after I married Damien, we'd drifted apart. Not naturally, not gradually, deliberately. Damien had systematically isolated me from everyone in my life who might have noticed what was happening, who might have pointed out that I was losing myself, who might have helped me stay strong. He'd done it subtly at first. Comments about how Jennifer was kind of negative and probably jealous of our success. Suggestions that I shouldn't spend so much time with friends when I had responsibilities at home. Guilt trips about how hurt he felt when I chose other people over him. Eventually, it had just been easier to stop calling. Stop making plans. Stop maintaining those connections. But Jennifer had always told me that if I ever needed her, for anything, at any time, she'd be there. I was betting she'd meant it. And I was betting she'd remember me. I found her number on LinkedIn. She was a divorce attorney now, specializing in high net worth cases. Which made sense. Jennifer had always been brilliant, driven, and absolutely ruthless when someone she cared about was being wronged. If anyone could help me navigate what was coming, it was her. My hands shook as I dialed her number. Part of me was terrified she wouldn't answer. That she'd be angry I'd disappeared for so long. That she'd tell me I'd made my bed, and now I had to lie in it. But mostly I was terrified that I was really doing this. That I was taking the first concrete step toward destroying my marriage. toward acknowledging that everything I'd believed in for the past 8 years was over. Jennifer Martinez, she answered on the third ring. Her voice was professional, confident, exactly how I remembered it. Jennifer? It's Elena. Elena Brooks. We were roommates at Columbia? Silence. Then, Elena? Oh my God, Elena Brooks? Is that really you? Her voice shifted completely. From professional attorney to my old friend in half a second. The warmth in her tone made tears spring to my eyes. Yeah, I managed. It's me. I know it's been a long time, and I'm sorry Don't you dare apologize, she cut me off. I've been worried about you for years. You just disappeared. Stopped returning calls. Stopped showing up to things. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong or... You didn't do anything wrong, I said quickly. It was complicated. My husband, I trailed off, not sure how to explain without sounding weak or stupid or both. Your husband isolated you, Jennifer said flatly. Classic controlling behavior. I'm a divorce attorney, Elena. I see it all the time. The pattern is always the same. Hearing her say it so matter-of-factly made something inside me relax. She understood. I didn't have to explain or justify or defend myself. She just knew. I need help, I said quietly. Legal help. And maybe just friend help. If you're willing to. I'm willing, she said immediately. Whatever you need. Tell me everything.
So I did.
I sat at my kitchen table and I told her everything. The whole sordid story. The isolation. The gradual decline of our marriage. The affair with Vanessa. Last night's humiliation. All of it. I kept my voice level. Tried to stay factual rather than emotional. Tried to sound like someone explaining a problem rather than someone whose entire life was falling apart. Jennifer listened without interrupting. I could hear her typing occasionally, taking notes, probably. When I finally finished, she was quiet for a moment. Okay, she said finally. First question, and I need you to answer honestly. Do you have proof of the affair? I can get it, I said. I've seen texts on his phone. I know where he keeps his laptop. I know passwords. I haven't copied anything yet. Do that. Today. Get screenshots of everything. Texts, emails, photos, anything that proves the infidelity. Save them to a cloud drive that only you have access to. Multiple backups. Make sure Damien can't delete or hide the evidence. Okay. Second question. How long have you been married? 8 years. Our anniversary was 2 months ago. An anniversary he'd forgotten completely until I reminded him, and even then he'd barely acknowledged it. And you gave up your career for him?
Yes.
I was in my MBA program at Columbia. I had 2 semesters left when we got married. He convinced me to pause my education to support his business launch. He said it was temporary, that I could go back once things were stable. But things were never stable enough, and eventually it just didn't happen. I heard her typing faster now. That's good for us. Very good. You sacrificed your earning potential to support his career. That's significant in terms of calculating spousal support and asset division. Any prenup? My stomach dropped. Yes. This was the part I'd been dreading. The part that made me feel truly stupid and naive. We'd had a prenup. Damien had insisted on it before the wedding. Said it was just a formality. That his business investors required it for liability reasons. That it was standard practice and didn't mean anything about his trust in me or our future together. I'd signed it because I loved him. Because I believed him. Because the idea of a prenup seemed like something for people who didn't really believe in their marriages, and I believed in ours completely. I'd barely even read it. Had just signed where his lawyer told me to sign, trusting that Damien wouldn't ask me to agree to anything unfair. Tell me you at least read it before signing, Jennifer said, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. I skimmed it. Jesus, Elena. I know. I was stupid, and you weren't stupid. You were in love, and you trusted someone you thought loved you back. That's not stupid. That's human. But it does complicate things.
She paused.
Bring me a copy of the prenup. Prenups can be challenged, especially if there's evidence of coercion, fraud, or unconscionability. And if you can prove he deliberately misrepresented his financial situation at the time of signing, we might be able to get it thrown out entirely. How would I prove that? Financial records from 8 years ago, bank statements, tax returns, business documents, anything that shows he had more assets than he claimed when you signed the prenup. Do you have access to those kinds of files?
Maybe.
He keeps everything on his computer and in his home office. I could look. Do it. Get copies of everything. And Elena.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you destroy him. Legally.
Thoroughly.
Completely. By the time we're done, he'll regret every word he said to you last night. That's a promise. Her fierce protectiveness made me start crying again. But this time they weren't tears of sadness or humiliation. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of hope. Thank you, I whispered. Thank me by getting me that evidence. And Elena? Be careful. If he even suspects you're planning to leave, he might try to hide assets or move money. We need to move quickly once we have everything we need. I understand. Good. Call me when you have the evidence. We'll set up a time to go over everything in detail. In the meantime, act normal. Don't let him know anything has changed. After I hung up with Jennifer, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. My hands had stopped shaking. My breathing had steadied.
The tears had dried.
Something had shifted inside me during that conversation. Some fundamental change in how I saw myself and my situation. For months, maybe years, I'd been thinking of myself as trapped, as helpless, as someone things happened to rather than someone who made things happen. But talking to Jennifer had reminded me of who I used to be before Damien systematically dismantled my confidence and independence. I used to be strong, capable, smart. A woman who was 2 semesters away from an MBA from Columbia. A woman with ambition and potential and a future. Damien hadn't just taken my present. He'd stolen my past too. Made me forget who I was before him. Made me believe that housewife was all I was capable of being. That domestic skills were my only value. That I should be grateful he kept me around at all. But he was wrong. So completely, utterly wrong. And I was going to prove it. I was going to prove it by taking everything he thought was his and showing him it was never his at all. It was ours. Built on my sacrifice, my support, my labor, my belief in him. And when I was done, he'd have nothing. Just like he'd tried to reduce me to nothing. But first, I needed information. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Who Damien really was. What he'd been doing. What secrets he was keeping. Because my instincts were screaming that there was more to this story than just an affair. Something about Damien's behavior over the past year didn't add up. The expensive purchases. The unexplained absences. The defensiveness whenever I asked simple questions about money. Something was wrong. Something beyond just infidelity. And I was going to find out what. Damien's home office was technically off limits. Not because he'd ever explicitly said I couldn't go in there, but because he'd created an atmosphere of such importance around his workspace that I'd internalized the idea that I shouldn't disturb it. It was where he did real work, with serious people, on important matters that someone like me, someone who just cooked and cleaned and handled basic domestic tasks, couldn't possibly understand. But as I stood outside the closed office door that afternoon, I realized that atmosphere had been deliberate, carefully constructed to keep me out, to keep me from seeing something he didn't want me to see. And that realization gave me the courage to turn the handle and walk in. The office looked exactly like Damien, expensive, sleek, and pretentious. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, a massive desk that probably cost more than a semester of the education I'd abandoned. diplomas, and awards on the walls. A bookshelf full of business books he'd never read but kept for appearances. Everything designed to impress, to intimidate, to remind anyone who entered that Damian Brooks was important. His computer was on. He'd left in such a hurry this morning, so eager to get away from me and presumably to Vanessa, that he hadn't bothered shutting it down. Or maybe he'd just gotten lazy about security because he was so certain I'd never invade his sacred space. Either way, his carelessness was about to become my opportunity. I sat in his chair, his throne really, that's what it felt like, and looked at the screen. He wasn't logged out of anything. His email was open. His financial software was running in the background. His file directories were easily accessible. He'd basically left me a roadmap to his entire life. I started with the email, opened the folder where he kept correspondence with Vanessa, and what I found there was worse than I'd imagined. So much worse. The affair had been going on for over a year. Not the quick fling I'd imagined. Not the recent mistake that might have been forgivable. A sustained, deliberate, long-term relationship that they'd been conducting right under my nose while I played the oblivious housewife. But the content of the emails was what really gutted me. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future together. Planning to get rid of me as quickly and cheaply as possible so they could ride off into their sunset without me being an inconvenience. Damian to Vanessa, 3 months ago. The prenup will protect me. She gets almost nothing. Just need to wait for the right moment to file. Once this current business deal closes, I'll have enough liquid assets hidden in offshore accounts that the divorce will cost me barely anything. She'll walk away with maybe $50,000 if she's lucky. And good riddance. Vanessa's response. Poor thing. She actually thinks you still love her. It's almost sad how clueless she is. Damian. She's useful right now. Keeps the house clean, handles all the boring domestic stuff, hosts my business dinners without complaining. But yeah, once I'm ready to upgrade to someone who's actually accomplished, she's gone. Can't wait to see her face when she realizes how completely she wasted the best years of her life on me. I read those messages 3 times. 4 times. Memorized them. Let every cruel word sink in until they became fuel. Until the hurt transformed into something harder and colder and infinitely more dangerous. He thought I was clueless. Thought I was useful. Thought I was someone he'd upgrade from like I was an old phone being replaced by the latest model.
We'd see about that.
I need to pause here for just a moment because we're at a critical point in Elena's journey. She's just discovered that her humiliation wasn't a drunken mistake. It wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was part of a calculated plan to make her feel so worthless that when he eventually divorced her, she'd accept whatever scraps he offered. But what Elena is about to discover next, what she's going to find in those financial files, is going to change everything. Not just for her. Not just for Damian. But for dozens of other people whose lives Damian has been destroying while pretending to be a successful businessman. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. What happens next is going to escalate quickly. The revenge is going to get complicated. The stakes are going to get higher. And you don't want to miss a single moment of how this unfolds. I sat in Damian's chair for another hour after reading those emails, just staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to stop there. To take what I'd found to Jennifer and start the divorce proceedings immediately. But something told me to keep digging. Some instinct that whispered there was more here than just an affair. More than just a cruel husband and his equally cruel mistress planning my humiliation. There was something else. Something bigger. Something that might explain the changes I'd noticed in Damian over the past year that went beyond just falling in love with someone else. The expensive purchases that seemed to come out of nowhere. The new watch that cost more than we used to spend on rent. The luxury car he'd leased without discussing it with me first. The weekend trips to places he claimed were business conferences, but that I could never quite verify. The way he'd become almost manic about money, obsessed with it in a way he'd never been before, even when we were struggling in the early days of his business. I opened his financial software. Brooks Financial Consulting, That was the name of his wealth management firm. He'd started it 6 years ago with Blake as his business partner and primary investor. The concept was simple: help wealthy clients manage their investment portfolios, provide financial planning services, take a percentage of assets under management as payment. It was a good business model, a legitimate business model, one that should have grown steadily, but not explosively. So, why did Damien suddenly have so much money? I started clicking through files. Client accounts, investment portfolios, bank statements. At first, everything looked normal, professional, exactly what you'd expect from a successful financial consulting firm. But the deeper I dug, the more things started to look wrong. Numbers that didn't add up, transactions that didn't make sense, client accounts that showed one balance on the official statements, but a different balance in the internal tracking system. It took me almost 2 hours to understand what I was looking at. 2 hours of cross-referencing documents and tracing money flows and trying to make sense of deliberately complicated financial structures. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Damien wasn't just running a wealth management firm. He was running a Ponzi scheme. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I actually gasped out loud, alone in that office, staring at the evidence of systematic, deliberate fraud that had been going on for at least 3 years. Probably longer. He'd been embezzling money from client accounts, not in huge, obvious chunks that would trigger immediate red flags, but small amounts. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. Amounts small enough that clients wouldn't notice immediately, especially if their portfolios were large enough. He'd take money from account A to cover losses in account B, use new client deposits to pay promised returns to older clients, create fake investment portfolios that showed healthy growth even though the actual investments were either performing poorly or didn't exist at all. It was classic Ponzi scheme structure. The kind of thing you read about in the news when some investor gets caught and loses everything and drags hundreds of innocent people down with them. The kind of thing that destroys lives, ruins retirements, bankrupts families. And my husband had been doing it for years. I kept digging, my hands shaking now, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Found spreadsheets where he tracked the real numbers separate from the fake ones he showed clients. Found emails where he discussed how to smooth out discrepancies with his assistant, a young guy named Jeremy who was either complicit or too naive to understand what he was really helping with. Found bank statements showing money flowing to offshore accounts. Accounts in the Cayman Islands. Accounts in Switzerland. Accounts that were hidden from everyone, including Blake, his business partner. Damien had stolen approximately $7 million over 3 years. $7 million from clients who trusted him, who thought he was helping them build their futures, who had no idea their money was funding his affair, his luxury lifestyle, and his plans to divorce me and ride off into the sunset with Vanessa. I thought I'd been angry before. Thought the emails between him and Vanessa had been the worst thing I could discover. But this was so much worse. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about dozens of people, maybe hundreds, who were going to lose everything because of Damien's greed. And suddenly, my revenge wasn't just about destroying the man who'd humiliated me. It was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. About stopping a criminal before he could steal more. About making sure justice happened, even if the justice system hadn't caught him yet. Jennifer had said prenups could be challenged on grounds of fraud. Well, I was looking at fraud that would make our prenup look like the least of Damien's problems. This was federal fraud. Securities fraud. The kind that came with prison time. Serious prison time. I started copying everything. Every document. Every email. Every bank statement. Every spreadsheet with real numbers versus fake numbers. I uploaded it all to a secure cloud drive that only I had access to. Multiple backups in multiple locations. Evidence that couldn't be deleted or hidden or explained away. It took me 4 hours. By the time I finished, my eyes were burning from staring at the screen and my back ached from sitting in that chair. But I had everything. Every piece of evidence needed to prove that Damian Brooks wasn't just an unfaithful husband. He was a criminal who'd been destroying lives for profit. And I was going to make sure he paid for it. But divorce and criminal prosecution weren't enough. Not for me. Not after what he'd done. Not after the public humiliation. Not after the emails where he'd laughed about how clueless I was. Not after years of systematically tearing down my self-worth until I believed I was nothing more than a domestic servant who should be grateful for his tolerance. I wanted him to feel what I felt.
The shame.
The exposure. The complete and utter destruction of watching your world collapse in front of an audience, while people who should care about you just watch and laugh. I wanted poetic justice. The kind that comes from being undone by your own arrogance. So, I started planning something bigger. Something that would humiliate Damian the way he'd humiliated me. Something that would expose him not just to lawyers and judges in private courtrooms, but to everyone who'd witnessed my humiliation. Everyone who'd laughed at me. Everyone who'd thought I was pathetic and weak and deserving of mockery. They were all going to watch him fall. And they were going to know that I'd been the one to push him. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. Strategic help from people who had their own reasons to want Damian and Vanessa exposed. I needed to build alliances carefully, bringing in exactly the right people at exactly the right time. The first person I thought of was Madison Chen, Blake's new girlfriend. I'd only met her once, briefly, at a Brooks Financial holiday party 6 months ago. She'd seemed sweet, young, maybe 26 or 27. A little overwhelmed by the wealth and sophistication of Damian's social circle. Definitely in love with Blake, which was obvious from the way she looked at him. Like he was the most important person in the room. What I remembered most about that brief meeting was how uncomfortable she'd seemed around Vanessa. How she'd avoided eye contact when Vanessa walked by. How she'd physically tensed when Vanessa said something dismissive about the wine selection. There was history there. Bad history. And I was betting I could use it. I found Madison on Instagram. Her profile was public, which made things easier. She was a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm downtown. Her feed was full of the usual things young professional women posted: coffee dates with friends, gym selfies, pictures with Blake at various restaurants and events. Normal. Relatable. Nothing like Vanessa's carefully curated feed of designer outfits and exotic vacations. I sent her a direct message, keeping it casual. Hi, Madison. This is Elena Brooks, Damian's wife. We met briefly at the Brooks Financial holiday party. I hope this doesn't seem strange, but I was hoping we could meet for coffee. There's something important I need to discuss with you. It involves Blake and Vanessa, and I think you deserve to know the truth about some things. She responded within 2 hours. Is everything okay? You're kind of scaring me. Not really, I typed back. But I think you'll want to hear this. Can we meet tomorrow? My treat. Anywhere you want. Okay. There's a coffee shop near my office. The Blue Bottle on 5th? Tomorrow at 2.
Perfect.
Thank you, Madison. I promise this will be worth your time. The next day, I got to the coffee shop 20 minutes early. Chose a table in the back corner where we could talk privately. Ordered a latte I didn't drink, just held, letting it warm my hands while I rehearsed what I was going to say. How much to reveal. How to present it in a way that would make Madison an ally rather than making her think I was crazy or vindictive or both. Madison arrived exactly on time, which told me she was nervous. People who are nervous show up exactly when they're supposed to, not early enough to seem desperate, not late enough to seem casual. Right on time, proving they care, but trying not to show it.
She was pretty in a natural way.
Minimal makeup. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Dressed professionally, but not expensively. Everything about her screamed, normal person trying to navigate a world that's slightly out of her league. I knew the feeling. I'd been that person once, before Damian systematically destroyed my confidence. Elena, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Thanks for? I'm here. Whatever you need to tell me. Thank you for coming, I said. I know this is weird. I know you barely know me, but I promise everything I'm about to show you is real, and I think you deserve to know what's been going on. What has been going on? Her voice was steady, but her hands were gripping her coffee cup like it was a life preserver. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshots I'd carefully selected, the ones that would hurt most. That would make everything clear. That would turn Madison from a stranger into an ally. These are text messages between my husband Damien and Vanessa, I said, handing her my phone. His mistress, Blake's ex-wife. I'm showing you this because I think you should know what they've been saying. About you.
About Blake.
About all of us. Madison took the phone with trembling hands. Started reading. I watched her face go through a progression of emotions. Confusion at first, then understanding, then hurt, then anger. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went hard. When she handed the phone back to me, she looked like a completely different person. They've been having an affair, she said. It wasn't a question.
For over a year.
Possibly longer. And these messages were they. She swallowed hard. Where they mock Blake. Where Vanessa says leaving him was the best decision she ever made. When were these sent? 2 months ago. While Blake was trying to figure out what went wrong with his marriage. While he was blaming himself. Madison's hands clenched into fists. That bitch. That absolute bitch. Do you know what she did to Blake? The rumors she spread about me? She told everyone in their social circle that I was the reason their marriage fell apart. That I'd seduced Blake while they were still together. That I was some kind of homewrecker who destroyed their perfect relationship. But that's not true, I said gently. Of course it's not true. They were already divorced when Blake and I met. Vanessa had already left him. But she needed a villain for her story, so she made me the villain. And everyone believed her because she's Vanessa fucking Chun with her perfect life and her perfect career and her perfect everything. Meanwhile, I almost lost my job because of the rumors. My boss called me in for a meeting about maintaining professional standards and avoiding the appearance of impropriety. I had to sit there and defend my relationship while people whispered about me being a mistress. She was breathing hard now, years of suppressed anger finally surfacing. Good. I needed her angry, needed her invested, needed her to want revenge as badly as I did. Blake has been miserable since the divorce, Madison continued. He blames himself, thinks he wasn't good enough for her, thinks he failed as a husband. He's been seeing a therapist twice a week, working on himself, trying to figure out where he went wrong. And the whole time, she was just fucking his business partner and laughing about it. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. You and Blake didn't deserve this. Neither of you did. Why are you showing me this? Madison asked, looking at me directly. What do you want? This was the moment, the pivot point, where I either gained an ally or lost her completely. I want revenge, I said honestly. I want to destroy Damien and Vanessa for what they've done to us. And I think we can help each other do it. Before I continue, I need to talk to you again. Because we've just reached another critical moment. Elena isn't just planning a simple divorce anymore. She's not just exposing an affair. She's building an army, recruiting allies, creating a network of people who all have reasons to want Damien and Vanessa exposed and destroyed. And what she's about to do with this alliance, the way she's going to coordinate everything to create maximum damage, it's brilliant. It's ruthless. And it's absolutely devastating. But I need to make sure you're still here for all of it. Because this is where the story shifts from personal revenge to something bigger. Something that involves the FBI and criminal prosecution and public humiliation on a scale that Damien never saw coming. You don't want to miss this. You can't miss this. So if you somehow still haven't subscribed, I'm begging you one more time. Hit that button.
Hit like.
Tell me in the comments whether you think Elena is justified in what she's doing. Whether she's going too far. Whether Damien deserves everything that's coming. Your engagement matters. Your thoughts matter. And I want to know what you think about where this is heading. So subscribe. Comment. And let's watch as Elena's carefully constructed revenge plot unfolds in ways that even she couldn't have predicted. Now, back to the story. Madison and I talked for 3 hours in that coffee shop. Once she got over her initial shock and anger, she was sharp, strategic. She understood immediately what I was trying to do and why I needed help doing it. She also had information I didn't have, perspectives I couldn't access, details about Blake and the business that would prove crucial to the plan forming in my mind. Blake has been worried about the business, Madison told me.
For months now.
He keeps saying the numbers don't add up, that clients are asking questions about their returns, that things feel off. But every time he brings it up to Damien, he gets shut down. Damien tells him he's being paranoid, that everything is fine, that Blake needs to trust him and focus on bringing in new clients rather than second-guessing the investment strategies. That's because Damien is hiding something, I said. Something major. What do you mean? I hesitated. This was a risk. Once I told Madison what I discovered, there was no taking it back. But I also couldn't bring down Damien without help. And Madison was already motivated, already angry, already invested in seeing Vanessa exposed. Damien has been embezzling money from client accounts, I said quietly. He's been running a Ponzi scheme, taking from one client to pay another, creating fake investment portfolios, hiding money in offshore accounts. It's all there in the company's internal files. Madison's eyes went wide. Are you serious? Completely serious. I have documentation. Spreadsheets, bank statements, emails, everything. But that means Blake's investment is at risk. Everything he put into the business is probably gone, I finished. Or most of it. Unless we act quickly to protect him. How do we protect him? By making sure the authorities know he wasn't involved in the fraud. By getting him to cooperate before charges are filed. By presenting him as a victim who was deceived by his business partner, not a co-conspirator. Blake doesn't know about any of this, Madison said urgently.
He's not involved.
He's been completely in the dark. I believe you, and I can prove it. The documents I found show that Damien deliberately hid information from Blake, created false reports, lied to him about client accounts. Blake will be fine if he cooperates with authorities. Authorities? You're going to the police? Better. The FBI. Securities fraud is a federal crime. They have an entire division that handles exactly this type of case. Madison sat back, processing. This is bigger than I thought. This isn't just about exposing an affair. No, I agreed. It's about stopping a criminal, protecting his victims, making sure he faces consequences that match what he's done. The affair is personal. The fraud is criminal. But both deserve to be exposed. What do you need from me? Madison asked after a long pause. Access to Blake's computer. Just for a few hours. I need to see his copies of the Brooks financial records. Verify that what I found in Damien's files is consistent. Make sure there's no way Damien can claim Blake knew about the fraud. Blake is going out of town this weekend for his mother's birthday, Madison said slowly. He'll be gone Friday night through Sunday. I have a key to his apartment. Perfect. But if he finds out I let you into his apartment, let you go through his private files. He won't find out unless you tell him. And once everything comes out, once the FBI gets involved and charges are filed, he'll understand why it had to happen this way. He'll be grateful we protected him. You really think this will work? I know it will work. I have 3 years of evidence. The FBI doesn't ignore evidence like this. They'll investigate. They'll find more. And Damien will go to prison. Madison was quiet for another moment. Then she nodded. Okay, I'm in. Friday night. I'll text you the address. That Friday night, I found myself standing in Blake's apartment with Madison watching the door nervously while I copied every Brooks financial document I could find on his computer. Blake was organized. Everything was clearly labeled and easy to navigate. He had quarterly reports, annual summaries, client lists, investment portfolios, bank statements. Everything a partial owner of the business should have. And more importantly, everything showed that Blake had been kept in the dark about the fraud. The reports Damien had given him were the falsified versions. The ones showing healthy growth and satisfied clients. The ones hiding the systematic theft. Blake had trusted his business partner completely. Had relied on Damien to handle the day-to-day financial operations while Blake focused on client relations and new business development. That trust was about to be shattered. But at least Blake would emerge from the wreckage as a victim rather than a co-conspirator. "Are you sure this is legal?" Madison asked for the third time, checking her phone, checking the door, checking the street outside for any sign of Blake returning unexpectedly. "It's complicated," I admitted. "But I'm not planning to use these documents myself. I'm giving them to the FBI. They'll verify everything independently. They'll get warrants for the official records. This is just insurance. Making sure Blake's protected." "You keep saying that. But what if he gets in trouble anyway?" "He won't. The evidence is clear that Damien hid the fraud from him, created false reports, deliberately deceived his business partner. Blake might lose his investment. That's probably unavoidable, but he won't face criminal charges."
I hoped I was right about that.
But honestly, even if Blake got dragged into it a little bit, I couldn't bring myself to care that much.
He laughed at me that night.
He'd participated in my humiliation. He'd sat there drinking my husband's whiskey in my living room and mocked me for having the audacity to interrupt with something as pathetic as offering to serve dinner. He'd earned whatever collateral damage came his way. But I didn't say that to Madison. She loved Blake, saw him as a good man who'd been hurt by his ex-wife's betrayal. And maybe that was true. Maybe he was a good man who'd made a bad choice one night when he was drunk and hurting. Or maybe he was just as complicit in the culture of cruelty that Damien had created. Either way, he was useful to my plan, and that was what mattered right now. I finished copying the files. It took about 4 hours total, and erased any trace that I'd been on Blake's computer. Madison and I left his apartment exactly as we'd found it. No evidence. No signs of intrusion. Just two women who'd never been there, carrying USB drives full of evidence that would help bring down a fraudster. "What happens now?" Madison asked as we stood outside Blake's building, the cool night air a relief after the tension of the past few hours. "Now I contact the FBI. I give them everything. And we wait." "How long?" "Months, probably. These investigations take time. They'll need to verify everything. Get warrants. Build a case. But they'll move eventually. And in the meantime? In the meantime, I file for divorce. Challenge the prenup. Start building the public case for why Damien is a terrible person who deserves everything that's coming to him. What about Vanessa? Vanessa will protect herself. She'll distance herself from Damien the second things start falling apart. She's smart enough to know when to jump ship. But her reputation will still be destroyed. The affair will be exposed. Everyone will know she left Blake for his business partner, then abandoned that business partner when he became a liability. She'll be fine financially. She has her own career, but socially? She'll be toxic. Madison smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been wronged and was finally going to see justice. Good. She deserves that. The next week, I contacted the FBI through their online tip system. It felt surreal, sitting at my kitchen table, typing out an explanation of securities fraud like I was reporting a stolen package instead of exposing a multi-million-dollar crime. But I kept my message factual, professional, the kind of thing that would be taken seriously by whoever read it. I have evidence of securities fraud and embezzlement involving Brooks Financial Consulting, a wealth management firm based in New York City. The owner, Damien Brooks, has been operating a Ponzi scheme for approximately 3 years, systematically stealing from client accounts while creating false investment portfolios and reports. I can provide detailed financial records, client communications, and bank statements proving theft from client accounts totaling over $7 million. I am willing to cooperate fully with any investigation. I submitted it through their anonymous tip portal, including a secure email address where they could contact me. Then I waited. 3 days later, I received a response. An agent named Sarah Chin wanted to meet. The irony of her last name matching Vanessa's wasn't lost on me, but I tried not to read too much into it.
It was a common name.
A coincidence. Nothing more. We met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan, and anywhere I might run into Damien or his associates. Agent Chun was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of my appearance, my body language, my nervous hand movements as I sat down across from her. "Mrs. Brooks," she said, her voice professional but not unkind. "Thank you for meeting with me. Before we begin, I need to make sure you understand that providing false information to the FBI is a federal crime. If anything you've told us turns out to be fabricated or exaggerated, you could face serious charges."
I understand, I said.
"And everything I'm about to show you is real. I wouldn't risk contacting the FBI if I wasn't absolutely certain."
All right.
"Let's see what you have." I pulled out a USB drive, one of many copies I'd made, stored in multiple secure locations in case something happened to the originals, and slid it across the table. This contains 3 years of financial records from Brooks Financial Consulting. Internal documents showing real account balances versus the fake balances shown to clients. Emails where Damien Brooks discusses covering up losses and hiding the fraud from his business partner. Bank statements showing money flowing to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. Everything you need to prove systematic, deliberate fraud. Agent Chin took the drive carefully, examining it like it might explode. "How did you obtain this information?" "I'm Damien's wife. I have legal access to our shared home office and our shared computers. Everything on that drive was obtained legally from locations where I have every right to be." "And you're willing to testify if this goes to trial?" I hesitated, but only for effect. Only to make myself seem like a frightened wife gathering courage rather than a woman executing a carefully planned revenge.
Yes.
"I'm willing to testify. I want him to face consequences for what he's done. He's destroyed people's lives, stolen their retirements, their children's college funds, their futures. And he's done it all while living a luxury lifestyle and planning to divorce me the second it became convenient." "Has he threatened you? Are you in any physical danger?" "Not physically, no. But emotionally." I let my voice crack, let tears pool in my eyes without falling. "He's destroyed me. He humiliated me in front of his friends. He's been having an affair with his business partner's ex-wife. He told me I was worthless, that the only reason I'm still in his life is because he's too busy to file divorce papers. I don't know who he is anymore." Agent Chen's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Infidelity is painful under any circumstances, but combined with potential criminal activity, I can't imagine how difficult this must be." "I just want him stopped," I said. "I want him to pay for what he's done. Not just to me, but to all those innocent people who trusted him with their money. If the evidence you've provided is accurate, and we'll need to verify everything independently, you're doing the right thing. Financial fraud destroys lives. Entire families lose everything because of schemes like this. Retirements disappear.
Dreams die.
People who worked their whole lives to build security suddenly have nothing. If your husband is really doing what you say he's doing, then he needs to be stopped before more people get hurt." "How long will it take?" "The investigation. These cases are complex. We'll need to verify every document.
Interview client.
Examine bank records. Trace money flows. Get warrants for the official company files. Realistically, 6 months minimum before we're ready to file charges. Possibly a year or longer depending on what we find." 6 months to a year. That was longer than I'd hoped, but not unexpected. White-collar crime investigations always took time. But I could wait. I was patient. And in the meantime, I'd be executing the other parts of my plan. "That's fine," I said. "I can wait." As long as justice happens eventually. It will, Agent Chen promised. If he's guilty, we'll prove it. And he'll face the consequences. While the FBI was beginning their investigation, quietly, carefully, without Damien knowing he was being watched, I started preparing for the divorce. Jennifer and I met multiple times over the next few weeks, building our case, strategizing our approach, preparing for every possible counterargument Damien's lawyers might raise. The prenup is going to be our biggest challenge, Jennifer explained during one of our marathon strategy sessions. It's legitimate on its face. Properly executed. Both parties had representation. Well, you had representation even if you didn't really use them. But we can challenge it on grounds of fraud in the inducement. Fraud in the inducement? I asked. It means he lied to you about material facts when convincing you to sign. Specifically, his financial situation. You've shown me tax returns from the year you got married. He claimed minimal assets. Said the business was struggling. Convinced you that the prenup was protecting nothing because there was nothing to protect. But you've also shown me bank statements from that same period proving he had over $2 million in various accounts and investments that he never disclosed. So he lied. He committed fraud. Big difference. If we can prove he deliberately misrepresented his financial situation to induce you to sign an unfavorable agreement, the judge can throw out the whole prenup. And then it's just a standard divorce. 8 years of marriage. You gave up your career to support his business. You contributed to the household. You enable his success through your unpaid domestic labor. In New York, that's worth a lot. You could get half of everything. Maybe more depending on how egregious his behavior looks to the judge. What about the affair? Does that matter? New York is a no-fault divorce state, so technically the affair doesn't affect asset division. But it absolutely affects things like spousal support and the judge's overall impression of the parties. A husband who cheated on his wife, humiliated her publicly, and then tried to screw her over with a fraudulent prenup? That's a bad look. Judges are human. They have feelings, and they don't like seeing people abused. So, we have a chance. We have more than a chance. We have a strong case. Especially once the criminal charges get filed. Once everyone knows Damien has been running a Ponzi scheme, his credibility is shot. Any claims he makes about you being difficult or unreasonable or whatever will be undermined by the fact that he's a proven liar and criminal. When do we file?
Soon.
I want to wait until the FBI is a little further along in their investigation. Once they've executed search warrants and seized records, there will be news coverage. Public awareness. That's when we want to file, when everyone is paying attention and Damien's reputation is already in tatters. Maximum impact. Maximum impact. That's what I wanted. That's what Damien deserved after what he'd done to me. But the divorce was only part of the revenge. The legal part. The part that would get me money and freedom and a fresh start. What I really wanted, what I needed to make this complete, was the public humiliation. The exposure. The moment when everyone who'd witnessed my destruction would watch his. And I knew exactly when that moment needed to happen. Damien's 40th birthday was in 3 months. He'd been planning a massive celebration for over a year. He was that kind of person, the kind who thought milestone birthdays deserved elaborate parties that were really more about showing off than celebrating. He'd reserved the entire top floor of an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. Invited 150 guests. Hired a photographer. Created a whole event around himself and his supposed accomplishments. It was going to be perfect. The perfect moment. The perfect audience. The perfect opportunity to destroy him completely. I started planning immediately. Not just planning, laying groundwork. Creating circumstances. Manipulating situations. Ensuring that every piece would be exactly where I needed it when the moment came. First, I needed to make sure I was still involved in the party planning. That I still had access. Still had trust. Damien had already started to push me away from his social life, but he was lazy about details. He liked the idea of throwing a big party, but hated actually organizing one.
which meant he needed me.
Needed me to handle invitations and seating charts and menu selections and all the boring logistical work he couldn't be bothered with. So I played the dutiful wife, the helpful partner, the woman who was so pathetically grateful to be included that she'd do all the work without complaint. I smiled and nodded and made sure every detail was perfect. Made sure the event would be exactly as Damien envisioned. Made sure everyone who mattered would be there, including, of course, Vanessa. Second, I needed access to the venue's technical systems, specifically the presentation equipment. Damien's friend Carter was preparing a slideshow for the party, baby photos, childhood memories, college highlights, business achievements. All the predictable content you'd expect at a milestone birthday celebration. It was supposed to play during dinner, a feel-good tribute to Damien's wonderful life. I contacted the venue directly, using my name as Mrs. Brooks, the person paying for the event. Told them I wanted to add a special surprise presentation for my husband. Asked to speak with their AV technician. His name was Tyler. He was 23, working his way through college, eager to please and completely unsuspicious. Why would he be suspicious? I was just a loving wife wanting to surprise her husband at his birthday party. I have a presentation I want to add after Carter's slideshow, I told Tyler over the phone. Just a short video montage I've been working on. Very personal. Very special. I want it to be a surprise, so I can't tell anyone else about it. Can you help me? Of course, Mrs. Brooks. Just send me the file a few days before the event, and I'll make sure it plays at exactly the right time. Thank you so much. And Tyler?
This is really important to me.
Really personal. Can you promise me it will stay confidential? I don't want anyone to know about it until the night of the party. I promise. Your secret is safe with me.
Perfect.
Absolutely perfect. The presentation I created was a masterpiece, if I do say so myself. It took me weeks to compile, to edit, to perfect. I went through everything I'd found, every text message, every email, every photo, every piece of evidence of the affair and the fraud, and I created a narrative, a story, a 15-minute presentation that would expose everything about Damien's double life. It started with the texts between Damien and Vanessa, the cruel ones, the ones where they mocked me, where they laughed about how clueless I was, where they planned their future together while dismissing me as nothing more than an inconvenience to be discarded at the earliest opportunity. Those texts would appear on screen, huge, impossible to miss, impossible to dismiss. Each one carefully selected for maximum impact. Then came the photos. Proof of the affair that couldn't be denied. Damien and Vanessa together. At restaurants. At hotels. In our house, my house, the one I'd turned into a home. Kissing on my couch, in my kitchen, in spaces that were supposed to be sacred. Time-stamped. Dated. Undeniable. And finally, the financial documents. Simplified for a lay audience, but devastating in their clarity. Bank statements showing money flowing from client accounts to Damien's personal accounts. Emails discussing how to cover up losses. Messages about using client money to pay for the luxury lifestyle he'd been living. Spreadsheets showing real numbers versus the fake numbers he'd been showing clients. Everything laid out in a way that even people with no financial background could understand. I titled it The Truth About Damien Brooks. And I sent it to Tyler 3 days before the party, with specific instructions about when to play it. The party itself was exactly what Damien had wanted. Expensive. Impressive. Full of important people who made him feel important. The restaurant was beautiful, decorated perfectly, everything I'd organized coming together exactly as planned. Guests arrived in their designer clothes, drinking their expensive wine, celebrating Damien's milestone birthday like it was actually meaningful. I wore a red dress. Something I'd bought specifically for this occasion. Something that made me look powerful instead of dowdy. Something that reminded me I was more than the worthless housewife Damien had tried to reduce me to. When Damien saw me, his eyes widened slightly.
Anna.
You look different. Thank you. I wanted tonight to be special. Vanessa arrived late, making an entrance, wearing something that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She kissed Damien on the cheek in front of everyone, possessive and public, like their affair was already common knowledge and accepted. Maybe it was in their circle. Maybe everyone knew and just didn't care because I didn't matter enough to protect. But they were about to care. I played my part perfectly through the cocktail hour, smiled at people who'd mocked me, made small talk with Damien's friends who'd laughed at my humiliation, acted like everything was fine, like I was happy to be there, like I wasn't about to detonate a nuclear bomb in the middle of this celebration. Dinner was served. People ate and drank and laughed. Damien gave a speech thanking everyone for coming, for supporting him, for being part of his journey. I couldn't have achieved any of this without the people in this room, he said, raising his glass. You're not just my friends and colleagues.
You're my family.
He looked at me when he said it. Actually looked at me. Included me in his gratitude. And especially my wife, Elena, who's been by my side through everything. I know I don't say it enough, but thank you. The applause was polite.
Perfunctory.
No one in this room actually cared about me or my contributions. But they clapped because that's what you do at these events. You perform gratitude even when you don't feel it. Carter's slideshow played next. It was sweet, sentimental. Baby Damien in a bathtub. Teenage Damien at prom. College Damien graduating. Everyone oohed and awed appropriately. Smiled at the cute photos. Felt whatever superficial emotions they were capable of feeling for a man most of them only knew as a business contact or social connection. Then Carter's slideshow ended. The screen went black for a moment. And my presentation began. Listen, we need to pause here again, because this is it. This is the moment everything Elena has been building toward for months. The moment when Damien's carefully constructed life starts to crumble in front of everyone who matters to him. The moment when the people who laughed at Elena's humiliation watch Damien experience something infinitely worse. And I need you to be fully present for this. Fully engaged. Because what happens next is going to be shocking. It's going to be satisfying. It's going to be uncomfortable and brutal and absolutely deserved. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've hit that like button. Make sure you're ready to see how poetic justice really works. Because Elena isn't just exposing an affair. She's exposing a criminal. A liar. A man who's been destroying lives while pretending to be successful and respectable. And by the time this presentation ends, everyone in that room and everyone watching this video will understand exactly what kind of person Damien Brooks really is. Don't go anywhere. The devastation is just beginning. The first image appeared on the screen. A text message. Huge.
Clear.
Impossible to miss. She actually thinks you still love her. It's almost sad how clueless she is. Vanessa. She's useful. Keeps the house clean, handles the boring domestic stuff. But yeah, once I'm ready to upgrade to someone who's actually accomplished, she's gone.
Damien.
The room went silent.
Confused.
People were squinting at the screen, reading, trying to understand what they were looking at. Why this was appearing at Damien's birthday party. Whether this was some kind of joke. Then the next message appeared. Can't wait until she's gone and we can be together properly. Living in that house with her is suffocating. Vanessa. Soon, baby. Just need to time the divorce right. The prenup protects most of my assets. She'll get almost nothing. Damien. More silence. Then whispers. People turning to look at me. At Damien. At Vanessa. Confusion transforming into understanding. Understanding transforming into shock. Damien was standing now, his face going white, his eyes locked on the screen like he was watching his own execution. What the hell is this? Turn it off. Someone turn it off. But Tyler, bless him, had done exactly what I'd asked. He'd locked the controls. The presentation had to play through to the end.
No one could stop it. Not Damien. Not anyone.
The messages kept coming, each one more damning than the last. Messages about how boring I was, how useless, how Damien was only staying married to me because divorce was inconvenient right now. Messages where they mocked me, laughed at me, planned their future while treating my present as nothing more than an obstacle. Then came the photos. Damien and Vanessa together,
Kissing.
in bed, in my house, time-stamped, dated, proof of a sustained, deliberate, long-term affair. The room was no longer silent.
People were gasping. Some were standing up.
A few women were whispering to each other, their faces showing shock mixed with something that might have been sympathy. Finally, after months of being invisible, of being dismissed, of being treated like I didn't matter, finally, people were seeing me, seeing what had been done to me. Vanessa was trying to leave, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. But the doors were on the opposite side of the room, and she had to walk past the screen, past everyone staring at her, past the evidence of her betrayal displayed in high definition. "Elena," Damien said, turning to me, his voice desperate. "Elena, what are you doing? What is this?" I stood up, walked calmly to the microphone where Damien had given his speech earlier. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. I felt powerful in a way I hadn't felt in years. "I apologize for interrupting this lovely celebration," I said, my words carrying across the silent room. "But I thought everyone here should know who they're really celebrating tonight, who Damien Brooks really is." "She's lying," Damien shouted. "This is fake. She's insane. It's not fake," I said calmly. "I have copies of everything. And so does the FBI." That stopped him. Stopped everyone. The room went completely silent. You see, Damien isn't just an unfaithful husband. He's a criminal. I looked around the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible, making sure they understood that this wasn't just personal. This was important. This mattered. He's been running a Ponzi scheme through Brooks Financial Consulting for 3 years. He's stolen millions of dollars from clients, some of whom are in this room tonight. The presentation continued behind me. The financial documents appearing on screen. Bank statements. Emails. Spreadsheets showing real account balances versus fake ones. Everything simplified. Everything clear. Everything devastating. He's embezzled money from client accounts, I continued. Used new client deposits to pay fake returns to existing clients. Created completely fabricated investment portfolios. Hidden money in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. He's destroyed people's retirements, their savings, their children's college funds, all to fund his luxury lifestyle and his affair with his business partner's ex-wife.
People were standing now. Some were shouting.
Damien's clients were demanding answers. His business associates were pulling out their phones, probably calling lawyers. Blake, poor Blake who'd been kept in the dark about everything, was staring at the screen in horror, finally understanding why the numbers hadn't been adding up. "And the FBI knows," I said, raising my voice to be heard over the chaos. "Agent Sarah Chen from the Securities Fraud Division has been investigating Brooks Financial Consulting for 3 months. Charges will be filed within the next 60 days. Warrants will be executed. Assets will be frozen. And Damien Brooks will face justice for what he's done." That last part was slight speculation. I didn't know the exact timeline, but I was betting the FBI was close. And the shock value was worth the risk. Damien lunged toward me. Several men grabbed him, held him back. "You bitch. You insane, vindictive bitch. I'll destroy you for this." "You already tried to destroy me," I said, looking directly at him. "Remember? 3 months ago. In our living room. In front of your friends and your mistress. You told everyone I was worthless. That the only reason I was still around was because you were too busy to file divorce paperwork. You humiliated me.
You mocked me.
You made me feel like nothing." I paused, letting the words sink in. Letting everyone remember that night. Letting them feel the weight of their complicity. "Well, I'm no longer willing to wait for your convenience. As of tomorrow morning, divorce papers will be filed. I'm seeking full dissolution of the prenuptial agreement on grounds of fraud. You misrepresented your assets when I signed it. I'm seeking half of all marital assets, including your share of Brooks Financial Consulting. And I'm seeking damages for emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional harm, and breach of the marriage contract. The room exploded again. People were yelling, leaving, demanding answers. Damien was still being held back by several men, his face purple with rage. Vanessa had finally made it to the door and disappeared into the night. I walked off that stage with my head held high. My parents, who'd been sitting quietly through the whole thing, shocked but supportive, met me at the door. My mother hugged me. My father whispered, "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." And I walked out of that restaurant feeling lighter than I'd felt in years. Like I'd put down a burden I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Behind me, I could hear chaos. Shouting. Accusations. The sound of Damien's life falling apart in real time. And I didn't look back.
Didn't need to.
I'd done what I set out to do. I'd exposed him, humiliated him, shown everyone exactly who he was. The rest, the legal consequences, the criminal prosecution, the complete destruction of his reputation and career, that would unfold in its own time. For now, I was done. I'd gotten my revenge. And it was even sweeter than I'd imagined. The next 72 hours were a blur. The video from Damien's birthday party spread across social media like wildfire. Someone, probably multiple someones, had recorded the presentation on their phones and shared it. Within 24 hours, #DamienBrooks was trending on Twitter. News outlets picked up the story. Manhattan wealth manager exposed for fraud and affair at own birthday party. Wife's revenge, the presentation that destroyed a millionaire. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanting interviews. People I hadn't spoken to in years reaching out with support or gossip or both. Even some of Damien's former clients contacted me, asking if what I'd said about the FBI investigation was true, whether their money was safe, what they should do. I referred them all to Jennifer. She handled the media requests, screening everything, protecting me from the worst of it while ensuring our narrative that I was a betrayed wife and whistleblower, not a vindictive ex seeking revenge, stayed consistent and strong. The divorce papers were filed Monday morning, just like I'd promised. Jennifer had prepared everything in advance, waiting for exactly this moment. The moment when public opinion would be completely on my side and Damien would be too busy dealing with criminal investigations to mount an effective defense. Damien tried to fight back. Of course he did. He posted on social media claiming I was mentally unstable, that I'd fabricated evidence out of jealousy, that the FBI investigation was a lie created by a scorned wife trying to destroy him. But his denials rang hollow when, 3 days after the birthday party, the FBI executed search warrants on Brooks Financial Consulting. Agents showed up with warrants, seized computers, froze bank accounts, interviewed employees. The news covered it all. Every humiliating moment caught on camera and broadcast to the world. Federal agents raid Manhattan wealth management firm. Brooks Financial under investigation for alleged Ponzi scheme. Millionaire's birthday humiliation was just the beginning.
Damien's clients paniqued.
Started pulling their money or trying to. Most of them discovered their money was already gone.
Stolen.
Spent. Vanished into offshore accounts and luxury purchases, and years of living beyond legitimate means. The firm collapsed within a week. Blake, following Madison's advice and Jennifer's guidance, had already contacted his own lawyers and was cooperating with the FBI. He'd be okay, financially devastated but not criminally charged. Just another victim of Damien's systematic fraud. Vanessa tried to distance herself as quickly as possible. She released a statement through her law firm claiming she'd been manipulated by Damien, that she had no knowledge of any financial impropriety, that she was shocked and devastated to learn the truth about the man she'd been involved with. It was pure self-preservation, throwing Damien under the bus to save her own career and reputation. It probably worked, legally speaking. She wasn't charged with anything, but socially, she was destroyed. The affair was too public. The betrayal of Blake too obvious. The timing of her abandonment of Damien too convenient. She became toxic in Manhattan legal circles. Last I heard, she'd moved to California and was working at some boutique firm doing contract review. A far cry from the high-powered corporate litigator she'd been. The prenup challenge moved forward rapidly. Damien's lawyers tried to defend it, but the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records from 8 years ago showing he'd had significantly more assets than he'd disclosed. Email conversations where he discussed hiding money before the wedding to protect it. His own words proving he'd deliberately defrauded me into signing an unfair agreement. The judge granted our motion to void the prenup in its entirety. Suddenly, instead of walking away with almost nothing like Damien had planned, I was entitled to half of everything in a standard divorce proceeding. Not that there was much left to divide. The FBI had frozen most of his accounts. The firm had collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. But what remained, the house, some investment accounts that weren't directly tied to the fraud, retirement funds, would be split 50-50. Plus spousal support. Plus damages for emotional distress that the judge granted after reviewing the text messages between Damien and Vanessa. Jennifer had been right. Judges are human, and they really don't like seeing people abused. The criminal case took longer to resolve. These things always do. The FBI spent months building their case, tracing every transaction, interviewing every victim, documenting every false statement and fraudulent document. They were thorough, meticulous, building something that couldn't be challenged or dismissed or explained away. 8 months after the birthday party, Damien was indicted on 17 counts of wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. The indictment was sealed until the arrest, which happened early one morning when federal agents showed up at the apartment he'd been living in since I'd gotten a restraining order keeping him away from our house. The news covered that too. Footage of Damien in handcuffs, being led out of his building in a perp walk designed for maximum humiliation. He looked terrible.
Thin.
Older than his 40 years. Defeated in a way I'd never seen before. The arrogant, confident man who'd humiliated me in our living room was gone, replaced by someone hollow, broken. I watched the coverage from my newly remodeled home office. The house was mine now, part of the divorce settlement. I'd changed everything, repainted, bought new furniture, erased every trace of Damien from the space until it felt like mine and only mine. I watched him being arrested and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, not even anger anymore. Just emptiness where he used to be. His bail was set at $5 million. He couldn't pay it. His accounts were frozen. His assets were seized. His mother, who I'd always liked, honestly, she'd been kind to me during the marriage, mortgaged her house to post bail. It broke my heart a little, watching a good woman sacrifice for her terrible son. But that wasn't my responsibility, wasn't my problem. Damien's choices had consequences that extended beyond just him, and that was something he should have considered before he decided to become a criminal. He spent 3 weeks in jail before his mother could arrange the bail money. 3 weeks of living with actual criminals. 3 weeks of being treated like what he was, a fraudster who'd stolen from innocent people. 3 weeks of thinking about everything he'd lost. The trial took another 6 months to actually begin. More delays. More motions. More legal wrangling. I didn't attend most of it. Didn't need to. I'd given my testimony in a pre-trial deposition. Provided my evidence. Answered their questions. My part was done. But I was there for the verdict. Sat in the back of the courtroom, anonymous in a crowd of other observers, watching as the jury delivered their decision.
Guilty.
On all 17 counts. Damien's face crumpled when he heard it. He actually started crying. Tears streaming down his face, his shoulders shaking, his lawyer trying to comfort him while also probably calculating how to bill for the appeal that wouldn't work. Sentencing came 2 months later. The judge was harsh. Appropriately harsh for someone who'd stolen millions from people who'd trusted him, who destroyed retirements and educations and futures for personal profit. 12 years in federal prison. Restitution of $6.4 million, money he didn't have and would probably never have. 5 years of supervised release after prison. Permanent prohibition from working in securities or financial management. His life, essentially, was over. At least the life he'd known. The life he'd built on lies and fraud and betrayal. He'd get out of prison in his early 50s if he served the full term. Maybe earlier with good behavior, but federal sentences don't have the same parole flexibility as state ones. Either way, he'd be an aging ex-convict with a felony record and no career prospects. The wealthy friends would be gone. The luxury lifestyle would be gone. The arrogance and sense of superiority would hopefully be gone too, beaten out of him by years of incarceration and consequences. I watched him being led away in handcuffs after sentencing, and I finally felt something close to closure. Not satisfaction, exactly. Not joy. Just completion. The story was over. Damien had paid. Justice had happened. And I could finally move on. 5 years have passed since the birthday party. 5 years since I stood on that stage and exposed Damien to the world. 5 years since I stopped being a victim and became whatever I am now. Survivor, maybe. Advocate, hopefully. Someone stronger and wiser and infinitely more careful about who I trust. I'm 42 now. The divorce has been final for almost 5 years. I got my settlement. Not as much as I'd initially hoped after the government seized most of Damien's assets, but enough. About $800,000 after everything was calculated and divided. Enough to restart my life. Enough to go back to school. Enough to build something new. I finished my MBA. Finally. The one I'd abandoned for Damien's benefit 10 years ago. It felt incredible to walk across that stage at Columbia and receive my diploma. A completion of something I'd started so long ago. A promise to myself fulfilled. I started a nonprofit organization called Financial Fraud Victims Alliance. We provide support to people who've lost money to Ponzi schemes and other financial crimes. Help them navigate the legal system. Connect them with attorneys. Provide counseling and community, and hope that they can rebuild. It's funded partly by donations, partly by grants, partly by my settlement money. It's not making me rich, but it's making me useful. Making the pain I experienced count for something beyond just my own healing. I speak at conferences sometimes. Not often. I'm not trying to become some kind of celebrity victim, but occasionally. When the message matters. When I can help people understand the warning signs of financial fraud or domestic emotional abuse, or the ways predators isolate and control their victims. I tell my story. Not for revenge anymore, but for education. For prevention. For hope. I'm dating someone. His name is Thomas Chen, no relation to Vanessa, just another reminder that the universe has a sense of humor. He's a history professor at NYU. Quiet. Thoughtful. Kind in ways that feel deliberate rather than performative. He knows my story. Everyone knows my story after all the media coverage, but he doesn't treat me like a victim or a hero or a cautionary tale. He just treats me like Elena, like a person worth knowing beyond the most dramatic thing that ever happened to her. We're taking things slowly, building trust brick by careful brick. He understands why I'm cautious, why I ask questions. Why I need transparency and honesty and proof that words match actions. And he gives me all of that without making me feel crazy or paranoid or damaged. I think about Damien sometimes. Usually when someone asks about the story, or when I'm preparing a speech, or when an anniversary of some event, the humiliation, the birthday party, the arrest rolls around. But I don't think about him the way I used to, with anger or hurt or the consuming need for revenge. I think about him the way you think about a natural disaster you survived. Grateful it's over. aware of what you learned, but not defined by it anymore. He's still in prison, has about 7 years left on his sentence. I haven't seen him or spoken to him since the divorce was finalized. Don't plan to. There's nothing left to say. He made his choices. He lived his life. He hurt people, me included, but so many others too, and now he's paying the price. That's not my problem anymore. That's just consequences playing out the way they should. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he's trying to be better, going to therapy, taking classes. Apparently, he's become religious, found God or redemption or whatever people find when they hit absolute rock bottom. Maybe that's real. Maybe it's just another performance. I don't know, and I don't care. His growth or lack thereof is no longer my concern. What I do care about is my own growth, my own healing, my own future. I spent too many years letting Damien define my worth, define my reality, define who I was allowed to be. I'm not doing that anymore. Not with him. Not with anyone. I built this life, this career, this sense of self. I did that. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody helped me in the ways that really mattered. I clawed my way up from the humiliation and destruction, and I became someone I'm proud to be. And yeah, I destroyed Damien in the process. Exposed him. Humiliated him. Sent him to prison. Was that too far? Was that revenge taken beyond reasonable limits? Maybe.
Probably.
I don't know. What I do know is this. He wasn't just an unfaithful husband. He was a criminal destroying innocent lives. He was going to keep doing it until someone stopped him. I stopped him. And in the process, I saved future victims from losing everything the way his clients did. That's not revenge. That's justice. That's protection. That's using my pain to prevent someone else's. The affair exposure, the public humiliation at his birthday party, that part was revenge. Pure and simple. That part was me saying, you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to dress it up in noble language about justice or protecting victims. That part was personal. That part was about making him feel what I felt. Was it wrong? I don't know. Ask me again in another 5 years, and I might have a different answer. Right now, I can live with what I did. Can sleep at night knowing I exposed a criminal and humiliated a man who'd humiliated me. Can look at myself in the mirror and see someone who fought back instead of someone who let herself be destroyed. That has to be enough. Let me end this story by talking directly to you one final time. If you've made it this far, if you've watched Elena's journey from humiliated wife to strategic destroyer to survivor building a new life, I need you to understand something important. This story is complicated. It's not a simple tale of good versus evil or victim versus abuser. It's messy. It's morally ambiguous. It asks questions about revenge and justice and whether there's really a difference between the two when the person you're punishing genuinely deserves it.
Elena destroyed Damien.
Completely. Thoroughly. Used his own crimes against him, yes, but also orchestrated his public humiliation in ways that were designed to maximize his pain and embarrassment. She didn't just stop a criminal. She crushed him. And she did it deliberately, carefully, with full knowledge of what she was doing. Was she justified?
You tell me.
Because I don't have a simple answer. What I do know is that Damien wasn't innocent. He cheated on his wife, yes, but he also ran a Ponzi scheme that destroyed dozens of lives. He didn't just hurt Elena. He hurt countless others. And he was going to keep hurting people until someone stopped him. Elena stopped him. And in the process, she got her revenge. Personal and public and devastating. Did she go too far? Or did she do exactly what needed to be done? That's for you to decide. What I hope you take from this story isn't a simple lesson about revenge being good or bad. What I hope you take is this. People will underestimate you. They'll dismiss you. They'll think you're weak or stupid or incapable of fighting back. And when they do, you have a choice. You can stay small. Stay quiet. Accept their narrative about who you are. Or you can prove them wrong. Show them what you're really capable of. Show them that underestimating you was the biggest mistake they ever made. Elena chose the second option. She refused to be destroyed. Refused to accept Damien's version of her worth. Refused to go quietly into whatever small life he'd planned for her. And yes, her revenge was extreme. Was calculated. Was designed to cause maximum damage. But it was also effective. Damien never saw it coming because he genuinely believed she was too weak to fight back. That was his mistake. And he paid for it. So if you're watching this and you've been betrayed, humiliated, told you're worthless, remember Elena's story. Not because you should necessarily do what she did, but because you should remember that you're stronger than you think. Smarter than people give you credit for. Capable of more than anyone expects. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just becoming so completely yourself, so confident, so successful, so undeniably valuable, that the opinion of the person who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant. Now, if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it showed you something about revenge or justice or human nature that you hadn't considered before, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button one last time. Hit like to tell the algorithm this story matters. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been humiliated or betrayed or told they're not enough. Someone who needs to remember they're stronger than they think. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think about Elena's revenge. Whether she was justified. Whether she went too far. Whether Damien got what he deserved or more than he deserved. Your thoughts matter. This community matters. And these conversations about justice and revenge, and what we owe each other when we've been hurt, they matter too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Elena's story. Thank you for engaging with these complicated questions about right and wrong, and what happens when the line between them gets blurred. May you find justice when you've been wronged. May you find strength when you've been broken. And may you remember that the person who tried to destroy you doesn't get to write the end of your story. You do.